How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Z Garage. And if you saw last video that I put out, it was like 2.5 weeks ago. We were getting this car ready for Branson Z Fest. And if you caught the end of that video, I ended up saying that it was not going to make it. We just had too many issues with this. There were issues that probably could have made it, but I would not have felt comfortable doing that. It would have been really pushing my comfort level just as a person needing, AC and power steering. Then also the car that had, some small power or oil leaks and things that I really hadn't nailed down quite yet, like the tune, the exhaust. It doesn't even have an exhaust, so that would have been really rough. So there were a few reasons why I didn't want to take this, and it was super unfortunate because I really, really wanted to bring it. But I still went to Branson Z Fest. I took my Miata, and it's not the perfect Z replacement. I definitely felt a little out of place having a Miata there, but it was still super fun to drive. So they still let me go on all the drives with them. I had a really great time talking to all the other Z enthusiasts. So I'm from New Mexico, guys, if you don't know, and there are not a lot of good driving roads around here. It's pretty much flat. It's not always straight, but there's not like great mountainous roads, and Missouri had such good roads. I was genuinely impressed at just how much fun these drives were. The whole schedule for Branson Z Fest for the first 3 or 4 days is pretty much wake up, go on a drive for 3 to 5 hours with a group, come back, eat dinner, chat, in all the meantimes, and then do it again the next day. And it is just an absolute blast. I genuinely did not know that roads could be so fun. They were so well maintained. Every single corner you would go through had a sign that told you how fast that you should go through. And then based on your experience level with driving, you knew how much you could push that. So it was an absolute blast. I am not even joking. I've never experienced anything like it before. So if you guys have the opportunity to go to Branson Z Fest, if you're kind of in a not mountainous area like I am, and you have the opportunity to go to next year's Branson Z Fest, I highly recommend it. It was such an incredible time. I can't wait to bring this next year because it's going to be so much fun. There were a lot of really, really cool cars there. Not very many Z31s. I think there were like 7, which is tons compared to, what I see on a daily basis here. But I think there were, 20 or 30 Z32s, 20 or 30 350s and 370s. Probably 20-ish S30s. So lots of other Zs, lots of other generations. So I would love to see the Z31 better represented next year. I've heard that in the past years, there have been tons that have gone, like 15 to 20. So hopefully next year we can get a same kind of momentum and go again. But it was just a great time, guys. So all this to say is that I didn't actually film a lot of Branson Z Fest, which is why I didn't put out a dedicated Branson Z Fest video. Because it's pretty much wake up, drive, go to bed. And so the only thing that I really filmed was the car show on the last official day of the festival. So I'll go ahead and after this little monologue here, we'll go ahead and do a couple videos of Branson Z Fest, everything that I took. I'll see if I can pull out some driving videos from when we went on actual cruises. I think the Miata sounds good enough through the camera that I took it on, so we'll see if I can get some good audio clips of a couple corners, just so you guys can kind of see how they're going. But overall, it was a really great time, like I'm saying, guys. So I cannot wait to go next year. Hopefully, everything lines up again. I don't see why I wouldn't be able to, because this thing is really, really close to being done. So right after all the Branson Z Fest montage, we're going to jump right back into this. Now, it is Friday today, and I want to get this video out to you guys tomorrow, so we're not going to actually make very much progress in this video, but I want to go over all the tiny little things that we still need to do to this that were kind of preventing me from going to Branson. So I want to go ahead and kind of show you all the problem areas that were kind of giving me issues, how we're going to fix them, and then probably next week you'll see those fixes implemented. So fingers crossed that all this goes really well. I'm really, really hopeful that we can drive this in next video. How much of driving is up to me, just depending on how I feel, how the oil lines work, because there's so many tiny little leaks in these AN fittings. I got relatively cheap AN lines, which I think is really my main issue. But I ended up breaking one of my AN wrenches like 2 days before I had to leave. I would have needed more AN lines, so it was just kind of a lot of stuff that wasn't working out well for me. So I think, though, we're going to go ahead and be able to get everything here ready to go so that next week we can drive this. I need to put new gas in it, basically. I drove it a little bit at the end of last video. You saw that driving clip. It sounds so good. But this gas in here is like 1.5 years old, so I can't push it. I gave it tiny little bit of throttle. We never even made positive boost. So I cannot wait to actually give this thing just a little bit of gas. I'm super excited because it was so much fun when I drove it. I've been listening to that clip on repeat for the past couple weeks, but like all that to say, guys, I'm super excited. So stay tuned for next week's video because I'm sure it is going to be a big one. If I put first drive in the title, you'll know it was the first drive. So let's go ahead and take a look at Branson Z Fest, and then we'll go ahead and jump back to this and kind of see how it's going. guys, so I hope you enjoyed that quick recap of Branson Z Fest. Like I said, it was genuinely such a great thing to be able to experience, and I can't wait to go back next year. So definitely, if you guys are in the eastern kind of states area, definitely think about doing it because it would be really, really cool to get a lot of Z31s there. But let's go ahead and move on to the car. So I don't really remember how much of this I kind of showed because I was just really, really rushing those last few days. So I don't really remember how much I put into the videos. So I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick rundown, a recap of kind of how everything's routed currently, just in case you guys are curious. So we'll go ahead and start over here. These are all my vacuum lines, well, vacuum kind of slash boost. So this one right here, it goes down into the MAP and the FPR, or yeah, the fuel pressure regulator. So these two are all on one line. This one in the center here is bigger and it goes over to the brake booster. And then this one right here comes around and it splits right here. This side goes down to the blow-off valve, which is under here. And then the rest of it goes over. And what I ended up doing was removing the boost controller for the time being. So let me see if I can get a light here for you guys. You may be able to see this silicone line just goes straight into the wastegate right there. So the reason that I did this was because one, it was kind of getting tricky with all of the lines. And two, see if I can come over here for you guys. I had the boost controller mounted right here, and it was right next to the downpipe, and I was really scared that I was going to go ahead and melt the lines and then get a boost leak. So I went ahead and just simplified it for the time being, just because I wanted to get this running. I wanted to go ahead and make sure that it was reliable, and I didn't have any experience tuning with a boost controller, so that would have been a whole new process for me regardless. And I wanted to go ahead and make it simple. So I went down to one line. I'm pretty sure there's like a 10-pound spring in that gate right now, so we should be seeing around 10 pounds of boost once we go ahead and get this driving. We can obviously adjust that later with more springs and with a boost controller, but that's just how it is set up currently. And then I don't know if I showcased this right here. So you may notice that I have adjusted the coolant lines. So they were going down before and then back and over, and I adjusted them so they're actually coming up and then around with the oil feed. There's a couple reasons that I did this, but the main one was because in order to get the AC compressor down there, I had to remove all the lines that were running through there because there was a compressor. So I had these guys coming up. I took off the heat blanket, that guy right there. I took off the blanket for the turbo because I was scared of it chafing these silicone lines. There's still plenty of room, but the blanket was definitely hitting it. So we may end up, okay, so I'm definitely going to be changing out these silicone lines for AN lines in the future. But I think I've mentioned that in a previous video, but we need to go ahead and actually remove the lower intake manifold to tap and put in a new port on there because currently it's barbed. And I don't know if you can really put AN lines on a barbed and have it, be secure. So for the time being, we're using the silicone, but we will be moving over to AN in the future. When we move to AN, we can put that blanket back on, and I'm not going to have, any worries about this rubbing and chafing. But I zip tied these all together, so they're all nice up out of the way. Oops, sorry, I keep holding this kind of down a little bit. Let me move that up for you guys. But I actually really like this routing. I think it looks really good. It keeps all of the turbo stuff all in one area, and I really, really appreciate that. I changed out with some clamps on these, so they're the banded clamps instead of the worn gear clamps, because I was getting way too many leaks on these. I think it's partially because it's a silicone line, and also partially just the worm gear clamps are kind of garbage. So that's looking pretty good. I really enjoy how this looks. It looks kind of cool, honestly, in my opinion at least. Didn't change anything with the drain. It is still the same, and we have it sheathed as well. So that's looking really, really good. We haven't done the PCV lines yet, so I haven't figured out where I want to put the catch can, but we have some 8AN ports on either side that we can go ahead and vent to a catch can. Like I said, I've got to figure out where that's going to go, but we'll figure that out next week, probably. I think the rest of this is pretty straightforward. I'll just do a quick run through. So these are my LS coils, LS2 coils. You can see this is the MAC valve harness that I undid here. We're using the Z31 brake cylinder. Even though I have the Z32 brakes, I'm still using a Z31 cylinder. Haven't had any issues with that. Still locks up the brakes plenty fine. So that's doing good. I think if I mentioned at the end of last video, I need to go ahead and bleed the brakes one more time. They just weren't giving me enough stopping power. it was very clear that there was still air in the system. So, that's going to be on the list for next video as well. We got our clutch right there with the chase bays. That's like a 2JZ sort of swap line going down to the clutch. That's looking pretty good. We'll jump over to the front belt drive. And the first, oops, let me grip that back. So we only have one belt on it right now, and that's water pump and alternator. Maybe I'll see if I can get this in here for you guys. All right, so down here we have the belt drive, and as you can see, we just have the alternator and water pump belt on right now. I am using a 145 amp Nissan Quest alternator. I believe it's 2009. I'm not 100% sure of that though. But it does require a slight bit of modification to work with my high amp alternator bracket. But it's a great alternative if you're looking for a high amp alternator and you don't mind doing a little bit of modification. It's literally just cutting webbing off of the alternator so that it can actually fit properly. So if you have a Dremel, it's really easy to do. And then you might need to modify the block onto the adapter block that goes onto the actual engine block just a tiny little bit as well to get some clearance in there. I think you can go back into my G35 alternator video and see what I was describing. I don't know if I showed a picture of it in that video, but I haven't modified the block since then. But it does give you a little bit more clearance when you kind of cut out the interior part of that as well. So the next thing that we want to go ahead and put on the belt drive is the power steering. And it might be a bit difficult to see. I don't know if you guys can really get a good view. But back in there is the V-belt on the power steering pump. You can kind of see right there. And it's actually hitting the throttle body as it sits. Not hitting, it's actually really close, but it's definitely too close for me to get this belt around. So I'm going to have to physically remove my intake manifold in order to get this to fit. So I think I'm going to go ahead and actually build a spacer. I'll get a piece cut out for the intake manifold and we'll push it up. And that should give me a little bit more clearance right here because it's close right now. I don't think it'd cause any issues. But if we can go ahead and space that out, it's going to be a benefit for right there. It's going to be a benefit for that port underneath the intake that we're having issues with before. And it's just kind of got small little advantages like pushing these guys up a little bit more past this AN line so it's not too close. Just small stuff like that adding a little bit of space in there would definitely be advantageous for us. If you guys want these spacers, you can just contact me directly. I'm not going to put them on my website, and that's for the reason that they don't really do anything. There are people that have made spacers in the past, and then there are people that have dynoed cars with spacers and without spacers, and there really is no change between any of the torque curves or power levels that you're seeing. So it is kind of snake's oil, basically. So the only reason that I'm putting on here is because it is functional. We need to go ahead and actually physically move the manifold upwards. So that is why I'm putting a spacer on. So if you guys need a spacer because you are doing something similar, by all means contact me and I can go ahead and get one made for you. But if you're looking for, these weird kind of, advantageous effects that you've heard, just know that it really, there's never been proven that anything like that actually helps. So don't spend your money on stuff that you don't need. Yeah, so anyways, we're going to go ahead and probably get that done. Maybe not next week, but the week after that. I will probably go ahead and put the power steering on for now so I can go ahead and drive it easily because it is really, really stiff right now. So I'll probably go ahead and just remove the manifold, put the belt on, and then put it back down. That'll probably be the easiest thing. But that's looking pretty good. I put the coolant reservoir right here. It's actually just zip tied on to a little like a square adhesive based mount. So it just stuck to the back of the core support here. I really don't like it. It's flimsy. It doesn't work well. And it actually looks fine, but I think it's just kind of janky. So I might go ahead and try to move that to a different spot there. And then I definitely think I've showed this in the last video, but the two oil cooler lines that run down right through there, I believe both of those are leaking. One of them is a significant leak and the other one is just a little leak, but it is definitely still have oil on the actual fitting itself, so I know it's leaking. I believe I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but I think it's just because I use kind of low quality lines. So I went ahead and bought some more expensive PTFE AN line that I've used before without any issues. So that's coming in tomorrow. It'll be in next week's video. We're gonna go ahead and remake the lines that go up to the oil cooler over there because it is imperative that we do not lose oil and oil pressure while we're driving, especially if we're trying to do a 13-hour drive and we don't really have time to check the ground for puddles of oil. So we'll go ahead and get those replaced. Hopefully that's not too bad. I believe, let me see if I can grab a light for you guys. All right, I don't know if you guys can see down there where the in the center of the screen pretty much is where one of the oil cooler lines attaches to the block. It goes out through a banjo bolt into a hard line, and then that hard line actually goes into the soft line eventually. But it looks like it's a little oily around there, and the actual filter itself also has a little bit of oil on it. So I don't exactly know what is leaking, but I think we do have a secondary oil leak somewhere in there. I will eventually get to the borescope down there to go ahead and check it out. But it is a much smaller leak than this other guy here, so it is not nearly as imperative to get that fixed. I think that is pretty much it. If you guys have seen the car, you know, we've got a good majority of it wrapped. Both doors, both our single fender here, front bumper here. That fender needs pretty much just to be completely repainted because the paint on it is really bad and the wrap is not going to stick to that. So we have to actually go ahead and repaint that fender. And then we need to go ahead and do the quarter panels and the roof. That'll be pretty interesting to see how that goes. But that'll be up next on the chopping block when we get back into the wrapping game. There's really not any plan. I'm not going to say, you know, it's next week or the week after that. It's just kind of I get to it when I get to it because it really is. These are pretty big sections and I need help with it. So I do kind of need to work around other people's schedules as well. So those will get done at some point. I went ahead and actually bought a new gasket for the windshield because it has like this plastic, you know, I don't know, something in it. And it's just shrunk over time and it looks really bad. I ended up, you can see it right there. I cut off a chunk of it. This side completely gone. I cut off up to like right here-ish. We need to go ahead and pull the rest of the top here. It's a little bit tighter, I think. I think there's more silicone up there. But once I go ahead and pull that off, we're going to go ahead and clean up this channel. And then right there on the ground, right there, is some new gasket that actually fits really, really well in here. So we'll go ahead and clean this up and make it look really, really nice. And then have something that's much more presentable than the garbage plastic, you know, mix of epoxy and whatever this was before. So that's looking really, really good. I think that's kind of all that I wanted to cover in this video. Obviously, there's still more things to do. We need to put the windshield wipers back. I've got an AC compressor that I still need to put down there. I need to modify the bracket still. I haven't quite finished that off because I've just been chilling the last couple weeks. We're going to go ahead and bleed the steering rack, which is pretty simple. I don't think I'll actually film it. But if you guys are curious how to bleed the power steering, you pretty much just turn the rack from lock to lock back and forth. And then just make sure that you are topped up on fluid. And it just pushes all of the air out of the side to side up into the reservoir. And then, you know, it sucks down new fluid. So overall, I am pretty happy with this, guys. Next week, we should be making some really good progress. Like I said, I'm hoping that we can do a first drive video next week. We definitely need to get some new gas in here because I really don't want to push it without really cleaning the fuel system first. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So if you guys have any questions or comments on this build, obviously go ahead and drop a comment down below. I've worked on my website a little bit to get a little bit more updated information to the latest build specs. So if you guys have any questions about major components, they should be in the website. I think it has its own tab. I think the build has its own tab. So you guys can go and check that out. And if you have any questions, of course, feel free to drop a comment. I'll answer. And I think that we're in really good shape. I am super, super excited to get back to driving this and to get it back on the road. It has been way too long, and I'm really, really excited. So fingers crossed that everything goes well next week, guys. Of course, I will show all the progress that we make, and I am really looking forward to it. So thank you again for watching this video, guys, and I'll see you guys next week.